Welcome to the AHA Show.
I'm an immigrant, and a lot of people see my life, and they don't realize that I lived in, I was born in Vietnam, and right after the Vietnam War. And after the Vietnam War, my family escaped from the war, and we are one of those folks that you would call the boat people. We got on a little fishing boat and floated out to sea because my father, at the time, there was persecution everywhere. And when you see refugees out there, I get it. I was a refugee. And our boat floated out to sea and we were pirated. I remember, we were about to die. We were drifting out to sea and we landed in an island in Malaysia. And I lived in a refugee camp for 3 years. And I remember being in the refugee camp. It's one of those refugee camps that you would think about, and it's like with barbed wires. I remember, not having enough. It was overcrowded, not enough places to go to the bathroom. It wasn't sanitary. It was dirty, and that's how my life started. Was in a refugee camp, and it wasn't until a church group actually we immigrated to the United States, and the church group, a Baptist group from Kansas. When we immigrated to the United States. My family ended up in Mississippi, and my father became the Forrest Gump of, the Vietnamese Forrest Gump. He started off with one fishing boat, it was a shrimping boat, and then he quickly grew to 5, and eventually my dad owned the entire harbor. And I remember my dad, growing up, think about it, I was a Vietnamese girl with a Southern drawl, growing up in the deep South. If you can picture that. And what I can say is at the age of 11, what ended up happening is we lost everything. There was a hurricane in Mississippi. We ended up losing everything. And at the age of 11, we found ourselves as a family homeless. I'm the oldest of 4 girls. And if you can imagine, my parents, in order to protect us, then sent us to live in Wisconsin with my aunt. And I remember it was the first time I've ever seen snow. And I remember my aunt, my mom would come visit us once every month to give money, all the money that her and my dad could come up with, to my aunt to make sure that we were okay. And one particular winter, she came up, and I remember that, I had a little hole about this big in my shoes, and I was so upset. I hadn't seen my parents in forever. I went from the deep South to Mississippi, and remember, I remember all my life people tell me I was born with no country, I was a Vietnamese girl living in all these places, and I was so angry. And I just remember that my mom took me to buy a pair of shoes. And I remember walking out of that Payless shoe store, and I was right behind her. And while I was walking out, I could literally see my mom's penny loafers. The soles of her shoes were falling off her feet, and I could see her bare foot through her shoes. And I think that when you think about mothers and what we do for our children and the stuff that we do, that was my aha moment. The moment where it was no longer about anger and, just this whole thing about why me? Why am I the one that's homeless? After, I've just been a refugee and I'm 11 years old. Why me? And it changed from this God-given gratitude to my mom, to my father, who would have given their life for me to have the privilege to be homeless in the United States. And, my mom knew enough that even though we didn't have a home, her children were going to get an education. And so that shoe story to me, I think speaks more than to just me. I think that some of the things I've done in my life, whoever thought a homeless girl that lived in Mississippi, that was a refugee from Vietnam, that was born in the rice paddies of Vietnam, would one day work at the White House and doing what I'm doing today. And it was all by this aha moment, this change of perspective, where you change how you look at things. And it went from being completely angry to be completely grateful. And that was so powerful. And I think that, and that's why aha moments mean so much to me, because it doesn't take a lot. They always say, you know, when the student is ready to hear, the teacher appears, and that's what happened to me at that young age. And that decision to change my perspective on life changed everything, and it was a domino effect.